Okay, everybody, so here we are again with the second semifinals match between Trumpfan and the Milkman. And once again, we're not going to be spectating both sides' hands tonight. If you guys watched the earlier matches at all, then we kind of know that Trumpfan is running a pretty standard Druid deck. It's pretty basic. There are some basic cards in there, like I think what did we see? We definitely saw things like Ironbark Protector, perhaps Boulder Fist Ogre, but we do know that he has managed to develop the collection a little bit. We did see Cenarius and things like that. So Trumpfan is obviously going to have a pretty nice little setup here, although it's a bit of a shame having to play Shattered Sun Cleric onto an empty board on turn 3. But as we learned earlier when we were watching Gibby as well, I think it was Gibby in a match earlier with the Mech Mage. Possibly, no, that was Staxwell, right? Hold on. No, that was Gibby. I think that was Gibby with the Mage. Anyway, regardless, either way, he had to play the Tinkertown Technician onto a bare board. You lose the buff, you lose the spare part, but sometimes this is your only option. You cannot afford to give up so much tempo that when you have a 3-drop on turn 3, that you're holding it back because you're not getting the full value out of it. That really is going to cost you in the long run. So, and look at this. We see Trumpfan innervate out the Boulder Fist Ogre, and now the Milkman is thinking, do I want to just Frostbolt it here, or do I want to go ahead and just Fireball it? I think Frostbolt's probably the better play. I think you want to give yourself a chance to get rid of it on the next turn, and you're going to just buff up your Worm here, do some face damage. The only problem is, are you risking losing your board to a swipe? The answer right now is no, because even if they swipe one creature, he's not going to have, Trumpfan's not going to have enough mana left to do his hero power as well and finish the board off. But we see Milkman really deliberating between Frostbolt and Fireball, and he's finally decided on the Frostbolt. And he's going to ping. And I think you just go face here, and on the next turn, you play the Mad Scientist and the ping to finish off the Ogre. Okay, so Trumpfan pulls out Druid of the Claw, and that's still a pretty serious board on turn 5, and now the Fireball comes out. This makes it easy for Milkman to push through, and with the coin he's going to still be able to finish off the Boulder Fist Ogre. That, I imagine, is going to be Mirror Entity. And we have a nice big Worm here too. We got a 5-attack Worm just starting to really put pressure on the Druid. And I think this is the problem when you innervate out some of your big creatures soon as the Druid. There's a very, very real chance that you can just come too soon, and you're not going to get like the sort of full value out of your creatures if your opponent has a good amount of ways to sort of limit the damage. So here we see the swipe to sort of, you know, it takes care of the Worm. It means like Micro Machine hasn't really gotten off yet, so that's not a big deal. And Milkman is going to go for the Unstable Portal, see what he pulls. Nothing sick, it's just a Timberwolf, and that doesn't even buff his actual minions. It only buffs other beasts, so it's not going to be favorable in this matchup. And the Micro Machine is going to go ahead and clear here, giving Milkman the board back, making sure he stays ahead. But certainly Trumpfan has managed to mitigate a little bit of that damage, and with the Starfire he's going to kill the Yeti off, get a card draw, and get a spare part. And Milkman just really doesn't have anything to answer with. He's going to have to draw here into his deck and hopefully pull out something a little bit stronger than a Clockwork Gnome. And that's not it. The problem is, yeah, you want to save the mirror images here for your next turn, because you want to be able to combo those with Antonidas, keeping Antonidas safe and putting a Fireball in your hand. Trumpfan playing Stranglethorn Tiger. This is actually a pretty good card. Doesn't see a lot of play these days because there are some pretty serious 5-drops in the game. Things like Sludge Belcher that people are really using a lot. And cards like this kind of get passed over because they even though they lose you a little bit of tempo, it's still good stats for the card and pretty much a guaranteed 5 damage on the next turn. But just the way standard deck builds and construction are working these days, this card just isn't optimal. Having said that, if we see something like a Druid of the Fang, where he manages to get out Druid of the Fang following up a Beast, means that a card that has 4/4 stats is going to get buffed to a 7/7 permanently, cannot be silenced. You really don't see a lot of it from the Druids, and we don't see it here actually either. But at the same time, the Kitty, pretty good. We get the we saw the reversing switch on Antonidas, and then the second Starfire. That's a pretty fantastic play, limiting Milkman to only 1 bonus Fireball from Antonidas. but now we see the Flame Waker, and the Flame Waker is absolutely one of my favorite cards in the game. I've always been a big fan of the Mage, and you know, the Mage, I feel like there's plenty of good, strong ways to play the deck. There's plenty of archetypes that fit into this class, but Flame Waker just makes it insanely fun, and now you get to just do all this crazy damage. He's going to go ahead and Fireball face, and definitely should just throw out the Frostwolf, or throw out the Timberwolf. I think either way, there's no point in keeping it in your hand. I don't think it's doing you any favors. It's not going to be like a late game comeback mechanic. Losing it to a swipe is not really going to hurt you, but having that extra damage point on the board might work in your favor. So not quite sure why the Milkman's holding back on the Timberwolf right now, but he could have played it at any time. And this is pretty much going to do it. He's Fireball pinged the Druid's face, and that's going to take the first game for the Milkman. And Trumpfan being taken to Value Town themselves. There you go. Milkman takes one pretty quick there against Trumpfan. That's the first game, so that's 1-0 in this match. And what was the other game? What was the other deck that we saw Trumpfan playing? I'm trying to remember. Yet it escapes me. I'm sorry, guys. It's late. I don't write these things down. I know that I'm doing my commentary. I'm still getting used to this whole commentator game, trying to do the best I can, and I probably should be taking notes as I go, which I don't ever. So if you guys ever hear me stumbling over stuff or trying to figure out what's going on, it's because I'm not as proficient a note taker as I should be. And we see Milkman switch over to his Paladin deck now that he's won, and Trumpfan going to go ahead and switch to his Mage deck. I think just to kind of, maybe they feel that the Mage is going to be a little bit stronger than the Druid, going to give them a little bit more of a tempo advantage, and they just don't want to get knocked out here in this round. It's the semifinals, and it's everything to play for right now. So I think Trump is maybe leaning on the Mage, thinking that this deck is going to be able to get them a win back. And this is something I do when I play in tournaments. I will play with my first deck. Even though I feel like I should win a game with that deck, if I do lose the first game, I might switch to my other deck, hoping to get a win with that deck and explore my opponent's deck. Explore the second deck that they choose to use, so that now when I go back to my original choice deck, it means that I have a much better time anticipating what I'm going to be up against. As we saw, it didn't serve me very well in my earlier match with the mid-range hunter, as we saw I played mid-range hunter in game 1 and 3 in that match. But a lot of that has to do with, I think, just my general ignorance towards the deck and the fact that I'm still learning it. On the other hand, here we see a pretty huge start for Milkman. 2 Zombie Chows and 2 Shielded Mini-Bots is going to put an awful lot of pressure on Trumpfan. You do see Trumpfan drop a Water Elemental, though, and this is one of those cards that's like an original game card, a basic set card that really is pretty strong, but not strong enough when you throw Blessing of Kings onto a Shielded Mini-Bot. And I think that's going to pretty much do it for Trumpfan. It's so early in the game, facing so much pressure. The one thing that he can count on here, though, is that if he can kill these Zombie Chows, we'll be able to top the health up pretty efficiently. So, but that Consecration is going to do an awful lot of damage. Now, what do you do here? I think you play Fairy Dragon. And testing, it is vaporized. Wow, Milkman made the bad decision and went in first with his strong attack minion. Nobody runs vaporized. To be fair, I mean, I'm not saying nobody. I'm not saying like Trumpfan made a bad decision including it in their deck, but it is one of those secrets you see so rarely, unless you're really in the arena, that it's very easy not to play around it. It's very easy for it to just slip your mind. You're going to swing in for that big damage and goodbye 6/6 creature. So Trumpfan pulling a little bit of tempo back here, but I think Milkman is still in an extremely commanding position. Although there we go, we see a Frostbolt onto the Zombie Chow. That's going to top up the Trumpfan health a little bit, and I think maybe I don't think I'm necessarily hoping it for them, but I think we're kind of hoping that Trumpfan's holding a Flame Strike, that they're going to be able to get out on turn 7 and get some of this back. But at this point, yeah, Milkman thoroughly in the lead, and taking care of that Mirror Entity as well, making sure that he doesn't have to use the Zombie Chow to clear it, trying not to top the Trumpfan health up that too much, and Trumpfan now facing a ton of damage on the board. It's like a lot of little pings, but still can do a lot of damage. It does add up, that's for sure. Boulder Fist Ogre is just not going to be good enough. I think that's pretty much puts this game in the books for Milkman. Let's see here. We got 3, 4, 8, 10. Plus Consecration is 12, and the ping is 13. Very close, not quite lethal, and that means he might not use Consecration here. But I don't really see the point in killing the Ogre. I honestly, I don't. I think you just push. I don't. You can't really count on the mage having much, if any, healing. And this is probably the correct play, but I don't think it really hurts to push for lethal here because even with Zombie Chow on the board, you're really in such a commanding position. I don't think it really matters. You've got so much health. It's not like the mage can give the Boulder Fist Ogre Wind Fury. So there may be an argument for the way that Milkman played it here, but I think he could have just pushed for lethal. I think he could have just set it up so that on the next turn that was a strong possibility. And we see from the response of Trumpfan that had he gone all in on face, that I think it would have actually worked out in his favor here. But considering the damage left to do to the mage, plus getting Chromaggus on the board, I think it's academic. I think this game is pretty much over anyway. And if indeed it is, we're going to see a finals between Milkman and Gibby. Can Trumpfan pull this back? I really don't think so. Just having seen that polymorph, there's no answer for Chromaggus, really. And yep, that'll do it. That'll do it. Unlucky Trumpfan, thank you for playing in our tournament tonight, but Milkman, in his first tournament with us, is going to push through to the finals. Good game, you guys.